Hey guys, welcome to the channel. It's Jack with Stronghold Strength and Conditioning. And today, I've got a pretty amazing 12-week mobility and flexibility transformation story for you. But before we get into it, make sure you take a moment and hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss out on future content like this. Every Thursday, I'm putting out videos showing you how to resolve aches and pains, prevent injuries, and overall optimize your performance inside the gym and outside of it in your daily life and routine. And it doesn't get much better than that. So go ahead and take advantage of it. Ready? Let's get into this one.
Hey Keith, thank you for joining me again. First of all, I just want to really appreciate your time for doing this, first of all. And I just want to first start off with, can you kind of introduce yourself to everybody, tell them a little bit about what you do and who you are and all that kind of stuff that you have, a little bit about yourself that way.
Yeah, sure. So I'm 53 years old, and at this point in my life, I spend the majority of my day driving in a vehicle. And so a few things. I drive all day long in a vehicle. Fitness, I'm also at a point in my life where fitness and health and fitness have just really become a big deal. And that all started several years ago when I went through some rough periods. So it comes to running became very important to me, and my mental health and my overall health. Weightlifting also became a big deal. But once all of these things started to combine, I noticed I was starting to get a significant amount of aches and pains all over the place. And that's when I started doing my research to find out what's going on here. And eventually I kind of started thinking that I might have some core issues. Like I feel I'm pretty weak in certain areas. And I started coming across the word mobility quite frequently. And I said, I'm 53, now I was 50 years old. I says, I'm kind of on that runway to 60 years old. And I'm like, I better start fixing some things here, or I'm going to be in a sad situation over this next decade. And to be honest with you, I've come a long way in 2 years, and I'm glad I started this journey. And but I still have a bit of work to do before I think I've built a strong foundation, off which then I can start focusing on a little bit more strength and things like that. So
Sure. And you mentioned you like lifting weights, you like running.
yeah.
Any other just physical activity stuff that you're kind of into overall?
Um, not. I mean, there's more that I want to, right?
Mhm.
So I've kind of already lived a part of my life where money was the driving factor. I'm kind of beyond that now, and
Mhm.
to me, moving forward, it's more about experiences. That's a big deal for me, and so adventures are going to be certainly a big part of my next decade or two. So I visualize myself playing volleyball on the beach in someplace kind of exotic in Mexico or something, or uh, mountain biking in various locations, being able to do rock climbing, ocean swimming is something that's also of interest to me. And so there's a lot of physical activities that I wanted to start doing, but I kind of realized that I'm kind of a physical mess.
Sure.
And I think from 30 years of sitting behind a computer just kind of wrecked me, and I didn't even realize how bad my body was until I started getting into all of this. So yeah, so right now I don't really have time for a lot more adventure than that because I'm working a lot. So I'm in my car a lot, and besides that, between that and the running and the weightlifting and the mobility and physical therapy, there's not a lot of time, but definitely adventure is going to be a big deal in my future.
Sure. And so, and I can't remember if you said it or not, but you got kids, right? And do you mind sharing how many kids you actually have?
Yes, I have 6 kids.
so so that alone too, right? I'm sure you have some stuff that you want to be able to do with them in the future and that kind of thing as well, right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So and that's another thing, right? Like a lot, my kids, um, I think they kind of grew up in an era where it was a lot about, even though I had video games growing up, I also grew up being outdoors a lot, right? So I grew up as an outdoor adventurous type person. where my kids, for whatever reason, are indoor kids, right? So they're on the computer a lot, playing video games a lot, watching YouTube videos a lot. I guess it's just the in thing, and they just really weren't brought up to spend a lot of time outdoors doing adventurous type climbing trees and rocks and those types of things. So I definitely see myself spending a lot more time with the kids outdoors and
Sure.
going on fishing trips and adventures and that sort of thing. Definitely.
So, and you've known me, what, maybe about 6 months now, if I'm thinking right. You came
That seems about
across
right.
my
Yeah.
7-day mobility training challenge. I think it was November, somewhere in there that I first met you.
Sounds right.
November 2020. So, so it's not like you've known me that long, even, right, at this point.
No.
Up to that point where you kind of came up to this 7-day mobility training challenge, can you kind of talk everyone through, like, so you're doing your strength training, you're doing your running. Can you kind of tell everybody a little bit more about, like, what the importance of that was to you overall, and make that connection, and then just kind of the things that started to become maybe like roadblocks or some limitations that you really started to get into. Any specifics on aches and pains and that kind of stuff?
Okay. Well, I mean, I really started running in 2018. I was in the spring of 2018. So what was I, 50 years old? Yeah, 50 years old at the time. So before that, I've never been a runner, though, occasionally I'd go for a jog over the years, but I've never, remotely would call myself a runner. But at that point in my life, I had unfortunately lost pretty much everything. And I had two choices. I could move to Florida and live with my brother to help me get back on my feet, or I could go homeless. Those are pretty much my two options in life. So it was just a strong reminder of me that pretty much, it doesn't take much to potentially throw somebody, for life to throw you a curve, and before you to be that close to losing everything. So anyway, I did lose everything materialistically. Even my mental health was suffering, because by then I was on antidepressants, anti-anxiety. Doctor had even put me on bipolar meds. Wasn't sure if that was something that was going on. But when I moved to Florida in 2018, I was broke, couldn't afford anything. So even the meds had to go. So I did what the doctors say do not do, which was abruptly stop all medication. And I had to, because I didn't have any money. But while I was in Florida, I've always been a big researcher and big into personal development. And so I've read a lot over the years, and read that exercise and being out in the sun can really help with one's mental health. And I said, I'm gonna get out every day for 10 or 15 minutes and just go for a walk. So I did that every day, and that's where I really learned the power of consistency. That's been my key word for the last couple of years, because you can consistently do something and you can end up in a bad way, or you can consistently do something and end up in a very good way. So I consistently walked every day. It didn't matter if I was hungover, tired, if I didn't want to go, if it was raining, storming, it didn't matter. I laced up and I went. Many times in Florida, especially, it rains pretty heavy at times. I got caught a number of times in some pretty heavy downpours, but I went. I just knew it was important, and before you know it, I was walking longer distances, and then I started walking twice a day, and then I started doing intermittent jogging, and then I started full-on jogging, and then before you know it, I started doing a lot more research on running. Bought a good pair of sneakers, started running longer distances. Then I started learning about the health benefits of longer runs. So Saturdays became my LSD runs. That's an acronym for long, slow distance. So those became my long runs, and I felt terrific. I just felt this, high, I guess, of after about 45 minutes of running, just how good that felt, and how good it felt for my mental health of being basically just kind of free, and being on the road to think through things and help solve problems, or just to be present and listening to the sounds around me, and to occasionally dart the stray, the dogs in the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
But before you know it, in 2019, I started using an app called Map My Run. And I joined. There was a contest to run 1,019 miles or something for the year. So I joined it just to see how I would do. And that app really, I think, was one of the enablers that kept pushing me to run. And I was consistently at the very top of the pack. So I ended the year in 2019 running over 1,600 miles, and I was in the top 1% of a 250,000 users.
Awesome.
And I didn't really, it became running was a thing that I did for my mental health. It wasn't for my heart, it wasn't for cardiovascular reasons. It was so that I felt good. And, I haven't been on any medication in 3 years now.
That's awesome.
And I definitely wholeheartedly attribute that to running and what that did for my mental health, especially at the time.
Sure.
Now, during that time, while I did run 1,600 miles, I thought I was going slow, but it turns out my body just wasn't really prepared for that after being so many years of sitting in front of a computer and being fairly immobile, I guess you'd say. So I was having a lot of back problems, especially from my mid back upwards to my upper back. And I was constantly fighting, having to, when I would sit at the computer to work during the day, I'd have to kind of slouch a little bit to kind of take the pressure off my back, ice up quite more frequently, and just dealing with tons of back problems, even taking more time off. Right. So now I'm kind of got this thing where I want to run because it makes me feel good, but I got to take time off so that I can heal. So that became a big problem. And then throughout this time in 2019, I started working out, lifting weights. I said, now I got to work on my strength because I'd gone through a period of depression, and I just could feel my strength was lacking significantly as well. And that's when I noticed a lot more problems, right? I was constantly tweaking my back, especially my lower back. I'd do a curl with 40 pounds or 50 pounds. That used to be no problem 10 years ago, but now it's like any weight like that, I got to be so careful with my core because just a slight move and boom, I'm twinged and tweaked, and now I'm off for another week, right? So I was having, in the beginning, the first 6 months of weight training, I did pretty good and was making really good strength progress, and even, I guess, hypertrophy, I started looking a little bit differently, and that was very positive, and I felt really good about that. But I was just constantly dealing with aches and pains from the running and the weightlifting. But I kept at it and going between ice, rest, research, and ibuprofen sometimes, unfortunately. And I said, and that's when I kept doing more research and said, there's a problem here somewhere in my spine. Something doesn't feel right. And that's when I started doing a lot more research on mobility and core strength and how can I firm up some of those things, because I really stagnated in my lifting and also with my running. The last half of last year up to about now, I've done almost zero running. So yeah, I ran a lot and it helped me in 2019, but that opened up a whole can of worms, which I'm grateful, right? I'm grateful it did. It's shown light in a big way on some of the body problems, body mechanics and issues that I was having. So that's kind of when I stumbled upon your course through my research.
Awesome. Yeah. And thank you, I mean, for sharing all that, because I think your story is incredibly powerful. Just everything you've gone through and where you're coming from with all this. So, prior to the 7-day mobility training challenge, you had done some physical therapy already at that point for the back and the shoulder, and it was the wrist, or those are the three areas. Yeah.
I was at the time I noticed as I was having a lot of problems on my left side.
Okay.
So it was my left knee, left wrist, left shoulder, left middle back, left lower back. Right side seemed to be fine. Mm-hmm. But at the time, and of course, COVID happened. So I was seeing a physical therapist primarily for my shoulder and back, but it was all virtual, just through Zoom meetings. And so she could never see me in person. Mm-hmm. But I was really kind of focused on, at the time, my left shoulder. And I was going to have surgery this past January. I basically had an issue with my long head bicep tendon that goes into my shoulder, rotator cuff, I'm not sure. But it's been affecting me for almost a year. Okay. And I thought the only solution was surgery, and it looked like a pretty benign surgery. called tendinosis, and so I was going to go through with it. I was all signed up and ready to go, and I canceled a few days before. I did more research, and everything that I read told me that this was still fixable. There wasn't it wasn't a tear or anything. It was just something that needed to heal, and I needed to find a way to deeply heal this. So I found another physical therapist that was in person, who definitely helped. And then, of course, I started doing some of the work with you. And primarily it was the voodoo flossing and the restricted blood flow therapy that I think helped out a lot there.
Sure. And when you were going through the 7-day challenge at first, I mean, so you're coming in, you got this back pain, you got this shoulder pain, you got this this wrist pain, the knees bugging you all along that left side. What was kind of like your experience going through that 7-day challenge? Because you know, I mean, I ask you guys to get in some pretty what might be challenging positions if you don't have, you know, quite the good mobility in the first place. So just kind of maybe walk me through that. What's your mindset going into it? What was kind of like your mindset through the 7 days, and
Sure.
what did you really take away from it in the 7-day challenge?
Okay. Yeah. I think it was, I was really looking forward to it. And one of the things is sometimes we don't want to take a challenge, or we don't want to do something because it's going to shine a big light on a problem. Right. So I knew that I had a lot of problems. And I'm like, oh my God, this thing is gonna really tell me. I'm gonna go through the 7-day challenge, and it's gonna tell me I'm a wreck. Right. So that was going through my
And
mind.
it did, right?
It did, right? So, but I wanted to know, okay, how much of a wreck, and what can I do about fixing this wreck? Because till then, you know, the only thing I really knew about mobility was stretching, you know, some regular, you know, stretching type stuff and things. But so I went through, I did the course. I liked that it was a head to toe type of a thing, so I could really learn about the different mobilities and throughout my body. And as I was going through it, I'm like, oh my God, there's just no way I can even get close to that position. Right. It's, you know what I mean? So obviously, you know, you doing, you know, you demonstrating these things, you know, easy, you know, it's so, you know, making it look easy, like we're just talking through it. And I'm like, I can barely breathe through it. And you know what I mean? And, like, you know, one of the exercises is the couch stretch. You know, you're up vertical, happy as can be, happy as a clam. And right, I'm at the time when I first did the 7-day challenge, I was literally still, my chest was still stuck at the floor. I'm like, I can't even come close to this.
Sure.
And I found that with a lot of things, you know, that I got down to my toes and my ankles, and just realized that, like you said, you know, one of them was put your fingers between your toes, right? I didn't think that was going to be a problem, but I put my fingers between my toes, and I'm like, oh my God, my toes are killing me.
Who knew that was a
Right?
mobility thing, right?
Right. I never knew that my toes hurt, but I tried putting my fingers, you know, splaying my toes, and like, I did it, but it was painful. And then you're like, okay, squeeze your fingers with your toes, and of course that killed even more. And so anyway, it really brought to light a lot of problems, but it was even worse than I thought. Yeah. And then it's like, I have no choice, but I really need to find the money and take this full course, because it's what I need to heal, so that I can do the things I want to do for the next 20 years.
Yeah. So you did the course. It was ended in November, maybe beginning of December there in 2020. After you'd finished that, it had probably been about a month. Had anything kind of going on in that month in between before you started Recalibrate?
No, I mean, the only thing was coming to terms with making the decision to pull the trigger. Right.
That's because you had mentioned, we kind of went back and forth, and you had mentioned it to me before the end of the year. And I think it was good because it was kind of like an accountability thing that you even put yourself out there and said, hey, I'm going to do this course. And that's when I reached back out to you after a couple weeks in January. And we kind of got started with Recalibrate there. So, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. No, it's one of those things where, you know, it could have gone either way. You know, I could have kind of forgot about things and then didn't take it to the next level. Yeah, I'm glad I did, to be honest with you, and I'm glad that you had the pricing structure in such a way that it enabled me, right? And I appreciate that, right? That is putting, you know, you're putting a lot of trust on us to be able to offer a couple of different options, and I'm extremely grateful, you know, for that, because this has been life-changing, not just from a flexibility and mobility standpoint, but even from the way I approach running and weightlifting now. It's different.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I love to hear that. So going into Recalibrate then, I mean, did you have what was kind of your feeling, your mindset? What was the initial experience going into the course itself? Can you kind of give people a little bit of idea of that transition then once you were starting?
Yeah, I was somewhat familiar with the concept of this type of a course, because I've taken some similar courses in the business side, these video type courses. So I kind of had an idea of what to expect from that type of a standpoint. What I wasn't sure was how much time, right? Because the time is always an issue. Like, how much time is this going to take, and how much time am I going to have to devote to it, right? So those are the decisions. A lot of my decisions were centered around time. Like, I just going to make sure I devote the time for this, because it's a lot of work, right? In the 12 weeks, I learned a lot. So I'm a person that enjoys learning, but also I was extremely motivated to fix my problems.
Sure.
Which means, I didn't do every exercise all the time, but having all these different tools and learning about them. So even if I didn't use them all, I at least it's a video in my head now of, oh, that's right, there is this exercise with the 2 lacrosse balls up and down my spine that I wanted to do, but I totally forgot about it because I was fixing some other issues. But now, so it's like I got this big tool bag now, where even though I haven't used some of them, I've seen them, and have an idea of how these little tools can fix problems. And I can go back now and rewatch the different sections of the course.
Sure, yeah, and I mean that was the whole goal, right? So to give you the toolkit and let you guys have those tools to work with to identify and resolve those issues. So I'm very glad to hear that as well.
And the biggest thing, of course, was that I wanted to come away feeling better. I mean, as far as from a mobility standpoint, I just wanted things to start healing, right? I wanted my wrist to start healing. I didn't want to. I've been dealing with my wrist now for 2 years. Can't do simple wrist curls. It got to the point where I couldn't even do barbell curls, and then I couldn't do easy curls because of my wrist, and then my shoulder with that long head bicep tendon. So and the back pain, right? I couldn't even do overhead presses because of something happening in my middle back. I don't know if it was the compression or there was something happening that was causing pain in my middle back after doing shoulder presses. And so it just seemed like I was just so stuck on this from making any progress that I just wanted to feel like at the end of 3 months that I felt better, and that I was finally making progress at the gym without constantly hurting myself.
Sure. And yes, although the course is a general overview of mobility, the mobility tools, a general system, we had kind of given you some specifics that we wanted you to work on too when you were entering the course, right? So we had kind of gone over like, hey, this is where I would start you on mobilities, even before you had learned or gone through a lot of the modules. So you kind of help guide you with that a little bit as well, right? So
yeah, I mean, like I didn't know that I was going to be learning how to breathe.
Sure.
Right. So, and I wasn't really breathing properly in the gym, right? And so now that's just become routine. Now I'm not perfect at it, but when I'm pressing or doing certain exercises at the gym, I'm kind of using the diaphragmatic breathing to protect my spine. And I got that analogy that you talked about with the beer can or the soup can, kind of helping provide stability to that part of your body. And I attribute that a lot to my not pulling things as well, just a better breathing that I have going on.
And you had mentioned, that you were unsure about the time. What kind of time commitment did you find yourself kind of putting into it overall throughout the course?
Well, I think once a week, I would listen to the videos. I'd kind of watch in one session. I would just kind of go through everything.
Mhm.
And I don't know how long that took. It varied anywhere, half hour to an hour. I'm not sure. But I
Mhm.
would also, I was also documenting things in Google Docs. So I would also put the training schedule week one, and I'd title what week one was focused on. I'd create a training document in Google Docs just so that I'd have that with me forever to refer to, and then I'd link to your videos on YouTube. So there's some stuff that I did myself, just for organizational purposes as well. So and then I just would start hitting, day one, and and do the work, and but I don't, kind of looking back on it. Um, I think because I was also dealing with a lot of injuries at the time as well, so I was also already knee deep in
Mhm.
physical therapy and spending daily time trying to fix things.
Sure.
So I may be an anomaly. I don't know,
So it was
but I'm
already part of the process, you're saying?
right. Yeah. So, but I'm pretty sure over the past few months, I probably put in at least an hour a day
Okay. Yeah.
into my mobility. Whether it's I do some stuff first thing in the morning, I do some stuff when I come home for lunch, and I do some stuff at night. But that's progressed over these few months,
Mhm.
to take into account my lifestyle and what I do for work. So um, it went from in the beginning. I'm spending more time doing mobility. Let's just put it that way than I was in the beginning.
Mhm.
But I'm also things are starting to heal and fix things, and that's huge progress to me.
Sure.
Um, and I can see the light at the tunnel. I can see maintenance, right? I can see. So to me, the vision, the thing that I'm looking forward to is, I'm at the point now where I can actually do maintenance once a week here for this instead of spending 15 minutes a day working on my wrist, right?
Mhm.
So and also just the realization, maybe as we get older, I don't know what it's like, when you're in your 30s or 20s or 30s or 40s, but I know at my age, and for me personally, and it could be my lifestyle, um, 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 that it's just taking things forever to heal. But just so to me, the realization of, okay, I've been trying to fix this wrist now for 2 years, but I obviously was doing the wrong things because now it's almost entirely fixed in 3 months. So now I can lift, I can curl just fine. Um, and I can wrist curl just fine. I can barbell curl just fine. I can do pull downs now just fine. But it took a lot of work. It just took a lot of consistent work every day or every other day, depending on what I was trying to fix.
Sure.
And there's that word again, right? That got me through the running and changing my life. It was that consistency. And if it wasn't for consistency, I would not I would not have made the progress that I made. I know that for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was what I was just going to point out. I mean, if you were a star student in this course, you were very consistent and you were very engaged, and I think that's really where you took a lot of more away from it in that sense. Um, but it's been awesome to talk to you each week, because each week it sounded like you were coming away with new light bulb moments, and we were seeing that type of progress very, very early on, just from your consistency and your determination to really get yourself out of where you were. So that was really cool to just kind of to watch and see. And I mean, can you kind of tell everybody where everything's at right now, as far as your back, your shoulder, that bicep tendon that you mentioned, the wrist, you said was already showing much improvement. You can do stuff you hadn't done in a while,
Yeah,
um, those types of things.
sure. Yeah. Well, the I would say the bicep tendon up into my shoulder, that's probably 95% fixed, right? So it doesn't bother me anymore at the gym. It gets tired, um,
Mhm.
right? So there's probably some atrophy that was happening there. So now I know that it's just continue to do what I'm doing, and it might take another 3 to 6 months, and now it's just time. But
Mhm.
at least I know I'm doing all the right things. That it's healing. Um, and then my left wrist, like I said, that's healing. So I'm still doing some mobility work on a weekly basis, to keep those joints healthy. Um, my middle back, I have had no pain in a couple months at all. I can press just fine. There's no pain whatsoever. Uh, Upper back pain, I don't know, it's between C7 and T1. That was a constant problem, and having to ice it a lot. And I haven't had to ice that in months, in a couple months probably. Um, and I think that's also from the work that I do. So even though I'm in my car a lot, I drive for Uber Eats and Grubhub and DoorDash. So I'm in my car a lot during the day, but now I have tools, right? So I go home for lunch and I take an hour and a half to kind of relax a little bit, but then I do a little bit of mobility work. I'm like, okay, I've been in the car for 4 hours and I got to kind of do a little bit of mobility work and prep for the next block that I do, right? So now I get these tools that I'm a little bit smarter about how I do things.
Sure.
And even how I drive throughout the day. I'm just doing things to activate my scapular and activate my muscles and my lats, and using the stern wheel, and just different techniques that I've learned that are helping these things finally heal on me. And I'm just realizing that I thought I was just getting old, right? Which I am, right? But I thought that it was just that this was just a natural thing. And to be honest with you, even the physical therapist just said, no, you're not going to, you should never do deadlifts at your age. And I'm like, I shouldn't be doing an exercise that I do all the time when I bend over and pick things. So you're telling me I should not be performing, I should not be working on getting better at something that I do almost every day.
Yeah, sorry,
So
you can't sit to the toilet anymore, man. Sorry, you're gonna have to stand and.
Right. Yeah. So you know what I mean? So that's healed. My left knee, right? Some of the techniques that you've taught me to work on healing that's going extremely well. I mentioned to you that yesterday morning I walked out of the gym. I'm not sure what happened, but it felt like I just had a couple glasses of wine. I just felt so relaxed. I must have had some endorphins kick in or something, because it was unusually relaxed that particular day, and loosened, and range of motion was really good. And I'm not really sure what happened, but also my ankles were just so loose, and I'm like, wow. So even things that I weren't working on because I didn't know that they were a problem are getting are loosening up and getting a lot more mobility, and I can feel the difference in a big way. And it's just one of those things that once you've lost it, or once you get something, once you've lost it and you get it back, you don't want to ever lose it again. Or in my case, like with the ankle, I didn't even know it was bad until it started loosening up. I'm like, oh my God, that feels really, really good. I'm going to keep this up.
Awesome. What did you find most valuable or beneficial about the courses now that you've gone through the 12 weeks here?
I guess the thing that I found most valuable was the fact that that these issues were solvable.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes it just takes the right solution to solve problems. And so like with all the information and the techniques that I learned through you, right? There's no one thing that if I just did that one thing, my life would be better. Actually, there might be. I take that back. There's probably one exercise. There's one exercise that was probably the biggest life changer for me. And that's as simple. It was a simple foam roller.
Okay. Yep.
On my back and my thoracic spine. I just think that for many years of sitting in front of a computer and hunched over, and I think that my top of my back and lacking that the thoracic extension was causing me so many problems. And I think once I've started to restore that, I think a lot of my problems have started to dissipate. Sure. And that's been a huge eye opener, for me. But just even the voodoo floss, I'm not even sure why they call it voodoo, because it's magic.
I think that's it.
Because I didn't I've never, just even new things that I loved learning about restricted blood flow therapy I didn't know anything about, and it's probably been around for years. But so just all these little different things to help fix, like even my shoulder, my wrist, right? I read that it can be hard to get it to heal because blood doesn't like to flow in here, and so different things that I've learned through the local physical therapists. But I love it when okay, we have an issue here where we can't get blood flow here, but here's a technique that'll help you get blood flow in here so you can actually heal, right? So why didn't these people tell me that? Why didn't people say, well, there are ways to do this?
Mhm.
So I think that was another thing that I really loved about the course, was that I learned things that other people said, you know, there's just nothing else to do.
It-
You know, and
It's
it's simple.
beautiful. That's beautiful right there.
So
So yeah, that's awesome. I mean, yeah, that is great to hear. I mean, and yeah, I mean, it is kind of, it's unfortunate because I think there's a whole mess of opportunity for people. I mean, like you said with your shoulder, you were about to go under the knife, and a couple days before, you know,
right.
you pulled the plug on that one. So, and I'm glad to hear that, especially where you're saying you're at today. I mean, that's awesome to hear all that stuff.
And you know,
Um,
it also introduced me to other things, right? Like fascia, right?
mm,
I've heard about myofascial releasing and fascia over the years, but I never really thought much about it, right? And then one time you had mentioned about, oh, you might want to look into, was it gua sha or something,
mhm,
to deal with your lower back, that you might have some issues there. And basically, I found my way into the chiropractor who started doing the Graston technique on my back, which was basically hard scraping,
mm,
and that hurt tremendously. And she's like, if you get good healthy tissue, and you've talked about this a lot all the time in your course about good
mm,
healthy tissue, this shouldn't really hurt, right? But a
yep,
lot of these self myofascial techniques that I did with these lacrosse balls and all these things, it hurt a lot,
sure,
right? So much that I didn't want to put any pressure on it, and now I can. But that was another huge thing that I've just learned about. I don't know if it's because I'm getting older, my tissue is starting to die. You know,
uh,
but but that's kind of my tissue is unhealthy. I didn't even realize that my fascia could tighten up so much that it could basically cause all of these, so many of these problems by having all these little adhesions and stuff. And so I think your course also even opened up other areas that I started to explore, which also further helped me as well.
sure. So, I mean, we've kind of brought everybody up through pre-course and all that at this point, and there's no doubt the course is an investment. It is an investment of your time. It's a financial investment. In your words, is it worth it?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I remember saying back in the very beginning that I'd work a second job and pay $10,000 if I could fix my problems.
Well,
You know,
there we
and
go.
and there you go. And that is the problem is like with anything, right? There's always a trust. You know, do you trust
Sure.
this stuff, right? And do you trust these things? And you don't really know. You don't. You know, you just. But you know, you got to do something. Otherwise, you're not getting any better. And I think that's one of the best ways to learn, right? And I started thinking it like, okay, what if I took a college course? How much is that going to cost me,
Mhm.
right? So I said, I'm just going to look at this like I took a college course. I'm furthering my education.
Sure. Well, and thankfully you didn't have to get a second job for that.
No,
and
thankfully.
we're well under $10,000. So I
Oh,
think
yeah.
those are two check marks right there for you. Um,
Exactly.
yeah, I mean, is there anything else you can think of that you'd like to just share with everybody at this point, or just kind of closing thoughts on it all for everybody?
I guess the biggest, I think the biggest eye opener for me was definitely that 7-day challenge, right? So, really, if you're going to do that challenge, and I suggest you do, um, really do the exercises. Spend the time, even if it takes a couple of weeks, right? Just get through the challenge from head to toe, so that you get a really good idea of where you're lacking, and also do know that you can feel significantly better.
Yeah.
Um, when this is done. I spend 10 to 12 hours of my day in this vehicle. Before taking your course, within an hour, my back hurt. I was putting stuff behind my neck. I was putting pillows behind my back. Right. It was awful. Right. It was just,
Sure.
I'd go to get out of my car and I'm at a right angle because my lower back hurt just getting out of the car, and now I just kind of fly out of my car. I'm in my car all day long, nothing bothers me. You know, I mean, I can drive the 6 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours to go see my kids, right? And I don't have to take, 10,000 milligrams of Motrin along the way. I take no, I don't have to take any Motrin. It's, I just got the techniques that fit my lifestyle. So I know how to drive a vehicle now, and the things that I need to do to keep my posture in check while I'm driving, and then the tools to help me recalibrate.
Sure. There it is, right there. He gets it.
Yeah, there you go. So
Well, and yes, I wanted to say we didn't stage this background for you, right? With the car there. That is
I'm
literally
in
where you're
my,
at quite a bit.
I am actually in a Walmart parking lot, and I did not sleep here last night. So.
Well, sir, I greatly appreciate you taking the time to kind of go through this with me for everybody's sake. I think your story is very powerful in general. So I'm really hopeful that this will help many other people in the long run here. Just get them past those hurdles that they're kind of facing, and even just give them the hope that where you are today doesn't have to be where you are tomorrow necessarily. It is just a snapshot, and those things can change with the right tools in place, right? So
Yeah, you just said it right, exactly. That you can feel better. Don't let don't first of all, don't anybody say it's just age, because I don't think I would have believed it if I hadn't experienced it for myself. But I feel really good. So
that's
thank you.
awesome. Thank you so much, sir. Well, hang on a second here. I'm going to close this out, and we'll go from there.
All right, and there you guys have it. An amazing transformation over 12 weeks, aches and pains that are already gone with just some simple mobility work. And that is the power in it, and that is where I get my passion to actually help people learn these mobility techniques. If you guys like Keith's story, make sure you let him know by clicking that big thumbs up down below, and take a moment to share this one with a friend who you know has some mobility issues, who's dealing with aches and pains and struggles in that way. If you guys are looking to improve your mobility and want to take the same steps that Keith has taken, take a moment, drop down below in the description, and sign up for the 7-day mobility training challenge. That is exactly where he started, and it was the spark that lit the fire that got him going there. It's 7 days of no equipment necessary mobility training already pre-programmed out for you, and it takes you from head to toe in a little bit of a litmus test to see where you're missing range of motion, where you're missing flexibility, and where you lack the motor control and patterning there. This is going to help you identify those key areas that need a little bit more focus than others, and it might even show some bigger changes that are going on in your whole body overall. So it is an important step in the process, and it's completely free. You can sign up down below and get started today. Now, if you guys are looking to take that next step already, you can also jump on the link for RECALIBRATE. That is the program that Keith had done that guided him over 12 weeks to where he is today without those aches and pains that he had struggled with for such a long time, even going to PT and trying to figure that out. So take advantage of the 7-day mobility training challenge, or jump right into RECALIBRATE, and let's go ahead and start getting you in the right direction, resolving your aches and pains, helping you prevent injuries in the future, and really overall just improving the way that you feel and move. If you guys have not already, last but not least, make sure you hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss out on future content like this. Every Thursday I'm putting out videos showing you how to resolve aches and pains, prevent injuries, and overall optimize your performance inside the gym and outside of it in your daily life and routine. Welcome to the Stronghold Army. I'll catch you guys next week.